Now watching the Climate Chat segment of the weekend show where we get to talk about how climate change is widening the gap of inequalities in Nigeria and beyond. My name is Zainab Adetala, and today I would like to take us a bit down memory lane. In April 2023, on the 16th of April 2023, there was a sea incursion in Ayetoro community of Ondo State, where 500 houses were affected and thousands of lives as a result. And this sea incursion led to several damages, including the loss of properties and livelihoods. While for Ayetoro community, the issue may be sea incursion, other communities have to deal with devastating realities like droughts, food insecurity, conflicts, water scarcity, just name it, flooding. These are the issues we see as a result of climate change. And today on the Climate Chat, I'll be having a conversation around how the government is addressing these issues and what communities can do to adapt and mitigate the impacts of climate change. I won't be doing this alone. I have my guest here with me this morning, Amidat Abdulsalam. She is a climate and gender justice advocate, and she'll be talking to us really about, good morning, Amidat.
Hi, Zainab. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm excited to see you for the first time.
To see you
Yes.
too.
So let's get right into it. I was talking earlier about Ayetoro community and that loss of, the sea incursion that happened in 2023. But I also know that it's not a one-off incident. This year, I've seen their young people from that community also come up on social media to start making complaints and advocating and saying that something needs to be done if they do not want to lose their community and become extinct. What would you say has been your experience working with these communities who are trying to deal with the impacts of climate change?
Thank you very much. I like how you already touched on some things. You mentioned the insecurity, food insecurity that comes with it, even loss of life and other dangers that happen. The thing is, the Ayetoro community is just one case out of 1,000.
Absolutely.
In different areas in Nigeria, a lot of indigenous communities are facing different impacts due to climate change and climate injustices that have been happening to them. That is why myself and fellow climate justice advocates around Nigeria and around the world have taken it upon ourselves to amplify these issues. Because at the end of the day, more often than not, these issues don't go out unless you make them public. We have to keep informing the public about these issues and not be quiet about them. Everybody needs to know, and also call for policy influencing and policy changing, favorable policy changing now. We keep calling on the government to do right by the citizens, provide adaptation and mitigation strategies for them to be able to adapt to these issues, because now that it has happened, there is need for us to manage it, right? People have already lost their houses and their source of livelihood due to climate crisis in different areas. So what next? The first thing is to provide alternatives for them and also help in relocating them or trying to mitigate these issues.
I hear you, and before we get deep into the adaptation and mitigation strategies, what I hear you say is that many of these communities do not feel heard and seen when these climate issues happen in their communities. And I know that one of the videos I watched, this young guy from Ayetoro kept saying, please help us so that our community does not go into extinction. We need your help. He kept saying that again and again. And it then brings me to the question of, are there even frameworks in place, in the Nigerian government or stakeholders in the space have put in place for communities to adapt, so that they can live better with the challenges and also for them to minimize the impact of climate change? Are there frameworks already in place that we can look at and say maybe this is what is being done to help these communities?
Yes, there are frameworks, even though it has their gaps. As of 2011, we have the National Adaptation Plan, and more recently in 2021 there is the NDCs, that's the nationally determined contributions. Even though these frameworks have their gaps, we can still see that it is better than nothing. There's still the gap of implementation, the gap of data, which is very big problem in Nigeria. So far, like I said, they are not being seen or heard. So that means the accounts of what has happened are not even being put into full consideration. People have died now, but do we know the numbers?
Interesting
People have been displaced. Do we know the numbers? Do we know how bad it is? So these are still some of the gaps that are in these frameworks. But yeah, that is why we also come into, you know, to advocate for a more inclusive, a more intentional and intersectional approach towards these framework and policies, because it's not a one-size-fits-all. You have to actually know the environment, know the community, and know what works for them best. So yeah, there are frameworks, but there are gaps.
Okay, now let's come back to, you know, some of this things being done, but this time around you talk about the intersectionality. Let's look at it from a climate justice perspective, because we're all about climate justice on this segment. You know,
yes.
When we talk about climate justice, those frameworks in place, these adaptation policies and the likes, do they include the consideration of women and other vulnerable groups?
More recently, the NDC on paper does.
That's the nationally determined contribution?
Yes, on paper it does include women. But we know the thing about Nigeria that how things are on paper is not necessarily how it is on ground, which is why we still keep advocating for the inclusion and the intersection of these policies. There's the gender responsiveness in the nationally determined condition for sure. But yeah, there are still the gaps, and that is why we are going to keep advocating that these things are inclusive and includes everybody's needs.
Okay, now as we bring this conversation to a close for today, I know that many of these communities try to look for how they can manage the situation. For example, in Ayetoro that I mentioned earlier, one thing they are doing is sand filling, but is that even a solution, right? So if you were speaking to people living in these communities or families of people living in these communities, what would you tell them beyond what they can do individually or as a community? What are the, you know, the national or international opportunities they can tap into that would help them get access to better solution, better responses, and things like that?
Okay, you've mentioned one earlier, is the thing of trying to amplify your situation, right? Now more people would know about it. Another thing they can do is partnership. Partnership with community-based organizations, CSOs, NGOs, that would help amplify your voices at the international level. You can't obviously do it alone. And even while you're trying to advocate for governments to intervene as well, having partners would also be a good leverage for you to improve on the conditions.
So these communities should look out for partnerships and begin to explore beyond their immediate environment.
Yes.
It's been fantastic having this conversation with you this morning, Amidat. And, you know, thank you for bringing that perspective to us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, and there you have it on the Climate Chat this morning. That's been Amidat Abdusalam, climate and gender and climate justice advocate, and it's been such a delight, you know, having that conversation with her. We'll now be ending it here on Climate Chat, and I'll be back next week. In the meantime, we are still in conversation with, we are still having other segments coming up on the weekend show, and standing by is the beautiful Aisha B, ready to give you all the juiciest gist from social media and take you on a ride in the world of entertainment. Good morning, Aisha.